ranked in the top 5. You know, Volkan's number 2. And hopefully shut the doubters up a little bit and show the world what I can do.
Does that bother you at all? You know, the other side, the critics who say, you know, you beat up washed up fighters, even though former champions. I mean, because on one side, you look back at your record in 10 years, you'll see those names on, you'll be like, wow, you beat those guys. You're not going to say they're at the end of their career, but currently, maybe that's what people think.
Depends on the day. Some days it bothers me more than others, you know. Part of me, you know, when that Shogun fight came available, you guys can go back and look, there wasn't a whole lot of people lining up for that fight. You know what I mean? And I took it on 2 weeks' notice. So, Shogun was ranked in the top 10. He was on a 3-5 winning streak. He hadn't lost in a couple of years. So it does bother me a little bit when people just discredit my opponents. It's not so much discrediting me. It's discrediting the people that I've been fighting. So, and then other days I'm kind of like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to say what they're going to say. And at this point in my career, I don't think I'm going to make everybody happy. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
And all it takes is a win here, right? And you can say, you know, now you're just on a winning streak that includes
absolutely
a couple
not,
of
man.
legends,
I promise you that I'm gonna demolish Volkan. It's not even gonna be close. I'm telling you, it's gonna be a dominant performance. And what you guys are gonna read is that Volkan didn't even deserve to be at the top, and he just had a quick rise, and no one really knew how good he was, and now we really know that he's not that good. That's exactly what you guys are gonna read about him.
Would you happy with that narrative, or do you want it to be like, wow, Volkan Oezdemir, former title challenger, Anthony Smith just walked through?
Man, as long as I get to a title shot, I don't care what the people say. You know, it doesn't matter to me. It's kind of been the narrative my whole career. It's not ever been about how good I am. It's always been about how bad my opponents are. And that's the narrative that I used to try to change all the time, and now I just don't care. As long as I'm opposite whoever wins the John Jones Alexander Gustafsson fight, I don't care.
As far as former opponents, obviously the Santos loss was a big one. You left that tweet pinned on your Twitter. Had things gone the other way that night, would you be here, or would you still be trying to make the cut to middleweight?
Honestly, I probably would have kept making the cut until I couldn't do it anymore. You know, just the way that I felt in that fight, it just wasn't worth it to me anymore. I mean, when you get to a point where you're cutting so hard that like the morning of the fight, I honestly was kind of like whatever, man. Like the weight cut was the hardest part of the entire ordeal. You know, like I'll fight that fight 10 times over again exactly the way they went, rather than cut that weight again.
You mentioned wanting to fight the winner of Jones-Gus. Obviously, that looks like it's going to be for the title. DC looks like he's going to be stripped. What are your thoughts on that whole situation? Because it looked like DC might defend. He stepped in and took that Derek Lewis fight relatively short notice, and now possibly John Jones could be the champ again. What are your thoughts on all that?
You know, as far as John Jones goes, like I've said 100 times, I'll never talk about anything John Jones does personally, because that's his own life. He wants to mess up. That's all. But as unfair as it does seem that John Jones is back in the title shot, the title's back in rotation, and that was something that DC wasn't doing. So I said 100 times, I never thought that DC was going to come back to 205, and I understand. You know, he's a double champ, and he wanted to hold on to that as long as he could, and I can't say that I would have done any different. So I'm just glad that it's moving again. You know, I just hope that John doesn't beat Gustafsson and then go up to heavyweight and then hold the division up again.
So you don't think it's unfair taking the belt from Cormier? I mean, you just defended in January.
I don't really think it's too much about the time. I just don't think that Daniel has any intention. I think that that's what it comes down to. I mean, if he had a timeline of like, I'm going to fight Derek Lewis at this time, and then in, who knows, March, then I'm going to defend the 205 title, I think he'd still have it. But I think that John Jones and Gus fighting for it tells us that he had no intention of defending it.
Right, well, he did say, I mean, he's like, I'm in a perfect spot. Because everyone's saying if he loses to Derek Lewis, like, you're going to lose the Brock Lesnar fight, all this, that. And he said, I have a second belt. If I lose this fight, I'm just going to go back down.
Right.
Then they can't strip me.
That'd be sweet for me.
Yeah, right.
I'd love that. That would work out perfect. Not that I hope that DC loses, because honestly, I don't care what happens in that fight. But if he does, and he wants to come back down to 205, John and Gus are already tied up. That only leaves me left, right?
Yeah.
So it leaves me in a pretty good position.
Yeah.
How did training camp go for you?
It went great. It went really, really good, man. We brought in a couple guys from out of town, just big, super strong strikers that just push forward. And it was flawless, and that's what I'm kind of finding in 205, that I'm not banged up, I'm not tired, I'm not too miserable. I mean, obviously the training camps get long, and you just get sick of the same shit every day, and you're just ready for a break. But I think that that's going to happen no matter what. But I feel great, man. My weights, I was on weight last night, so I'm good to go.
You and I talked about it about a month ago. You said you were going to bring some guys in. You mentioned one guy from Cleveland that trains Stipe.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to get Curtis Blades in your training camp?
No, me and Curtis, we weren't able to link our schedules up, especially now that he's got Alistair with him in his camp now. So I think that the work that we got in was more than sufficient, though, for sure.
Great.
Thiago Santos is a 205er now. Is that, I know your focus is on the title, but in the back of your mind, are you hoping this guy beats Jimmy Manuel and makes a run and puts a position to do that rematch?
For sure, for sure. Me and Thiago have a really unique relationship now. I think when you have a fight with someone like that, you leave a little bit of yourself with that person. You know what I mean? That was super wild. So I think that we have the understanding that if and when we fight again, that it's gotta matter. You know what I mean? You can't stick a fight with me and Thiago on like on a FS1 card. You know what I mean? Like we can't be the guys that jerk the curtain at the beginning of the pay-per-view. Like it's got to mean something because we're gonna lose a lot in that fight. Whether you win or you lose, a fight with me and Thiago Santos, neither one of us are gonna leave home, and it's just the harsh reality of what we do. You know. So I imagine if in a perfect world that I would end up fighting for the title and win it, and Thiago's going to keep winning because that dude's good. And he looks great at 205, and it seems like he's much happier. I'd imagine that would be a title defense for me down the road, you know, in a perfect world.
Yeah. So it's interesting how you talk about someone like Thiago. It seems very respectful. You say, you expect to lead someone in there, but you talk about Volkan. It's like, I'm going to run through this guy. Is it just because it's the person right in front of you, or is it something about his abilities?
If you go back and look at all the build-up to the Thiago fight, me and him kind of had this weird, like, unspoken respect for each other, and I think that it's just the way that you fight, it's the way that you carry yourself, it's the way that, like if you watch him fight, you know that dude just lays it all on the line and that he's never going to give up, and like he's about as close to me as you're going to get in the UFC. I've never seen a boring Thiago Santos fight, you know what I mean? He loses big or he wins big, and that's just how it is. Volkan's a different story because of the things that he's been saying and the way that he carries himself and just the total disregard and kind of disrespect for me that he has. And I haven't said too much about it, but I plan on reminding him of everything on Saturday for sure.
Is there anything specific he said that bugged you more so than another?
Just the stupid shit. Like, now it's time for me to find out what it's like at the top of the division. Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, how'd it work out for him last time he was at the top of the division? Didn't work out too goddamn good, if you ask me. And just talking how, that I'm not a great striker and that he only wanted to fight me because of the hype that I have right now that I don't really deserve it. That's just some arrogant shit, and I told him a month ago, be very careful what you say, because you don't want to feel stupid later on when I throw it in your face.
Yeah. You seem like the kind of guy that compartmentalizes things like that and you use it for motivation.
For sure,
right?
For sure, and I'm not one of those guys that's going to get overly emotional in there and freak out and go crazy, but there's those times when you have like a really clean shot, and it's sometimes it's just more efficient just to throw the pop shots, and these are those situations where you're just gonna let the clean ones go, and just let him have it. And I think he deserves that. I think he earned it.
So just last thing from you, the assumption you win big here and you fight for the title sometime next year, Jones, Cormier winner, maybe the first quarter of 2019. That's your thought?
Yeah. Hopefully get out of this one uninjured, and I can stay ready just in case something happens to John Jones or Gustafsson.
Yes,
No, nothing against those guys, but they don't really have the best track record of staying in fights. You know what I mean? Like, they do have a tendency to have situations come up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll stay ready for that one, and if not, I'll look to come back in July. It'd be nice to have a break and focus on building some new skills in between that.
Speaking of what I'm excited about, do you think do you guys have any previous interaction, or is it just like promotion on the spot, or do you think that these things are
I think Volkan's trying to convince himself. I honestly don't think that he's trying to. I don't think he's trying to disrespect me. I don't think he's trying to hype anything. I'm really good at reading people, and I get the vibe that he's trying to convince himself, because you guys aren't even sure how good Volkan is. You know what I mean? Like, no one knows how good he actually is. Like, and I don't think he does either.
He's training with TriStar recently, so what do you make of that? Do you think it might change anything in this game, or?
I think, honestly, that him training at TriStar the last 2 weeks of his camp is a bad idea. I've done the camp moves, you know, mid-fight or right before a big fight, and it never works out that well. It really doesn't. What happens is you have all this old stuff that you do, that you've been doing for a long time, and then you get a bunch of new shit thrown on top of that, and then you try to mix them together. 2 weeks isn't enough time to do that. So for us and everyone at TriStar, it's a super respectable gym. I have nothing but good things to say about those guys, but it's almost like he's trying to catch lightning in a bottle really quick and get some miracle to happen that if he didn't have it figured out 2 weeks before the fight, he's not gonna have it figured out on Saturday, that's for sure.
Which city do you like better so far, Hamburg?
I think I like Moncton better. I definitely understand more people here, that's for sure. And I guess the weather was about the same. I like it here. I like it here. It's cool. I'm really enjoying the culture, the food, and the people here have been really, really cool, man. It's crazy. I didn't realize how many fans I had in Canada, so that's been a nice surprise.
You're surprised to see how many people you knew about you?
Yeah, it was really surprising. I'm not really used to people, like, I kind of live in my own little box in Nebraska, you know? Like, I don't really see the outside world that much, you know what I mean? I don't really pay attention that close. So I was really shocked at how many people not even knew who I was, but were like really big fans of my body of work. So it's been really refreshing. It's been cool. Cool. Thank you. Rock and roll. Thanks, guys.